Hi, I'm Janet from Emmanuel Community United Methodist Church, and I'd like to welcome you to our first installment of Once Upon a Bible Time. I'm writing these stories just for you, and I hope you'll enjoy them. The first story is called Faithful on the Journey. "I'm bored," Evie complained to her mom. Her little brother Eddie was napping, and Mom was trying to get some work done. "Why don't you Zoom Grandpa?" her mother suggested. "Later we can all go outside." Soon Evie and Grandpa were looking at each other through the computer screen. Evie's grandpa was the best storyteller in the family. Evie hoped to have a story for her today. "Well, Evie, if you weren't stuck at home today, what would you like to be doing?" Grandpa asked. "Traveling somewhere." Evie and her family loved to travel. She could hardly wait for their next adventure somewhere. "Do you remember when we all visited Disney World?" Grandpa asked. "It was a surprise. You and Eddie didn't know where we were going." I remember. Even though you didn't know we were going to Disney, you were still awfully excited to be traveling. How come?" Evie thought. "Well, I knew we'd be going somewhere fun. It could have been anywhere, but I knew it would be great." Grandpa nodded. "That's right. You trusted that your parents would be with you along the way, and you knew that they wanted you to have a wonderful experience. That reminds me of a couple in the Bible, Abram and Sarai. Abram and Sarai had to trust God during some traveling they did. Would you like to hear more?" "Oh, yes, please." Theo, Grandpa's calico cat, jumped up on Grandpa's lap as he began. "Once upon a Bible time, Abram and Sarai lived in a great city called Ur. It didn't have skyscrapers like Chicago, but it had stone houses and a large temple where people worshipped many gods. There were markets and entertainers, and it was right by a lovely river. Farming was good there, and the food never ran out." "How about toilet paper?" Evie asked. "Did that never run out too?" "I'm pretty sure there wasn't any toilet paper back then," Grandpa laughed. "But you've got the right idea. Ur was a great place in Mesopotamia, and people felt lucky if they lived there." Abram and Sarai lived with his father and their extended family. They were herders and had lots of people working for them, helping with the sheep and cows. One day, God came to Abram. God said, "It's time to leave your country, your people, and your father's house. Leave all this behind and go to the land I will show you." This was no easy request. There were no moving trucks or even any cars. How would they get everything moved? And where were they going anyway? Would it be as nice as Ur? What if they didn't like it? But Abram and Sarai had faith in God. They knew that God would be with them on the journey. They knew that God wanted them to have a good life, so they trusted God. And Abram trusted God's promises, because in addition to asking Abram to leave Ur, God also made some promises to Abram. He promised that Abram would be the father of a great nation, and that he would be blessed. So, Abram, Sarai, Abram's father Terah, their nephew Lot, began preparing for the journey. They sorted their belongings, what to take and what to leave behind. Did they have a rummage sale? Evie loved going to rummage sales. There was always something wonderful to buy. They may have had a rummage sale. The Bible doesn't tell that part. They and their servants loaded the camels with everything they were going to take. They gathered the cows and sheep that would be moving with them. Then they and their servants started on the journey. Not by car, or train, or airplane. They walked. They traveled by day, and at night they rested. There were no hotels, so each night they set up their tents to sleep. Ooh, I love camping. Maybe they sang songs by the fire. Eddie often fell asleep while their family sang songs around the campfire, but Evie tried hard to stay awake. Yes, I imagine they did sing around the campfire, Evie. They followed the Euphrates River rather than cut across the desert where there was danger from daylight heat and lack of water. They traveled on roads that many traders and merchants also used, so they sometimes had company along the way. After traveling for several months, they reached the city of Haran. They stopped there for a few years. Terah, Abram's father, grew old and died. And then Abram, Sarai, and Lot continued their travels. By then, Abram was pretty old, even older than I am, said Grandpa. It's not easy to say goodbye to everything and start over again at that age. But he did. They packed up the camels and set out again. When they got to the place called Shechem, the Lord said to Abram, I will give this land to your children and their children. So Abram built an altar to God right there and worshiped God. All in all, Abram and Sarai traveled over 1,000 miles until God told them they were at the end of their journey. God kept them safe along the way. God had a good plan in mind for them, and they trusted God, even though they didn't know what his plan was. Grandpa picked up a bandana from his computer table. He tied it around his eyes. Theo the cat batted at the cloth with his paw. What are you doing, Grandpa? Now you can't see me on Zoom. I'm reminding you that you can trust God, even when you can't see where God is leading you. Just like you trust your parents when they take you on a surprise trip somewhere. When you trust the leader, you can enjoy the journey even without knowing the ending. Grandpa pulled the bandana down and smiled at Evie. But don't walk around with a bandana over your eyes. You might bump into a wall. Next time I see you, though, let me lead you around with the blindfold on. You can trust me to keep you safe, just like Abram and Sarai trusted God to keep them safe. Because I love you, and your mom and dad love you, and God loves you. I love you too, Grandpa, and I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to pretend to go on a journey. I don't have a camel, though. Do you think I could pretend with a rolling suitcase instead? I think that's a great idea, Evie. Love you lots. Bye-bye. Grandpa clicked off, and so did Evie. Then she ran to get her small suitcase. This was going to be fun. The end. I thought you might be interested to see a map of where Abram and Sarai went from the city of Ur all the way to Shechem. Over 1,000 miles they walked. Thank you so much for listening.